Damn, it says ready to go live and go live. Yeah, I suppose. So, hi everybody. Welcome to the shores of Casco Bay, Maine. Beautiful Casco Bay, Maine. This, of course, is not Casco Bay, Maine. This is this is actually Frenchman's Bay. It's a couple hours down east from where I am, but hey, whatever. Here I am sitting on the deck of Ranger again, which I suppose is a mere memory, like a whole bunch of some of the stuff I'm going to talk about tonight. The H.R. Haldeman memorial stream. Ever notice that I just looked up H.R. Haldeman because I wanted to have a little bit of reference to good old Dickie. Yeah, does anybody know what H.R. Haldeman's first name, given name, was? In the chat, if you're there. If you are there. And oh yeah, I should probably sort of open up chat so I can follow you guys, because I know you're here, but I don't know who you are, and I love you all, and I just kind of need to say hello to Pragmatic Crystal, to Jason Jacoby. Let's see, anybody else here? I don't know. Maybe some other folks will come wandering in. But Jason, do you know what H.R. do you remember? Do you know H.R. Haldeman? He was the chief of staff. Okay, I forgive you. There's no forgiveness involved here. I mean, fuck, I didn't know. But I remember the son of a bitch. H.R. Haldeman was Nixon's chief of staff. He was H.R. Haldeman to Richard Milhous Nixon, was Mark Meadows to Donald John Trump. And kind of the reason it's coming to mind at this point in time is the most corrupt presidents that I can recall. And okay, so here's my litany, my list of presidents I have known, or at least been aware of. I'm going to start with, I like Ike Eisenhower. Right. That's, and then John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and Lyndon Baines Johnson, and Richard Milhous Nixon. Yeah, that guy. And Gerald R. Ford, James Earl Carter, aka Jimmy. Jimmy, go fuck yourself. I mean, I'm not James Earl Carter, but some other Jimmy, who I think is learning to accept praise. That'd be my friend Jimmy Snow. But anyway, James Earl Carter, then the only president in my lifetime that actually was sworn in with all of his given names. unlike the British monarch, who is always sworn in by a plethora of sobriquets. And I don't really recall all of King Charles's given names. But anyway, beside the point, I get distracted. I'm easily distracted. George Herbert Walker Bush, who's a neighbor, actually, right down the road in Kennebunkport. Jesus Christ. The Walker family. Walker's Point's named after George Herbert Walker's maternal grandfather, I do believe. Let me tell you something. Whoever that fellow was, he wasn't no lobsterman. Unlikely he was from away. Anywho, boy, I am so easily distracted. And then, what do we get? William Jefferson Clinton. And then, I'm sorry. No, it wasn't Al. It was George Walker. Same Walker, same point, same locale, etc. and so forth. But different kind of dude. And then, John McCain. No. Fuck. There's another guy. Yeah, that's right. Barack Hussein Obama. And then Donald John Trump. And now, at the very last, our current president, Joseph, is it Robino? I believe. Biden. See, now I know all of their first names. I know them as Ike, mostly nicknames, really. I know Jack. Lyndon, what are you going to do with Lyndon? What are you going to do with Lyndon? There's not much you can do with Lyndon. Lyndon is Lyndon. It's all you can call him. Lind? You're going to call him, you can't. You just can't. Lyndon, that's a good name. In fact, that's damn good advice to parents out there. Don't give your kid, unless you want him to be a successful politician, I guess. I don't know. That doesn't work out all that well. Anyway, Lyndon Johnson, right? So, and then George, you can't do much with George either. You can't do much with, well, you could do a good deal with Nixon because his name was Dick. And, folks, the guy was, let's face it, Dick. He was the, one of the things in the McGovern, no, it wasn't McGovern. Who ran against Dickie Nixon? No, it was. Oh yes, it was. It was. Jeez, this is how bad of a Democrat I am. I can't remember. Yeah, it was George McGovern. You can't do much with George. George McGovern ran against Dickie Nixon in '72, and a great campaign slogan was "Don't change dicks in the middle of a screw. Vote for Nixon in '72." Very cool. It was pretty good. I don't know. Did I get 5 minutes in? Is YouTube gonna demonetize? Oh, wait a minute. I'm not monetized. By the way, all y'all out there who are here right now, please do like, subscribe, etc. and so forth. I'm trying to make my way in the world. I am. I really am. I'm trying to be a serious commentator. And actually, in earnest, I am. I'm trying to put stuff out there for you folks that matters. And from a certain point of view, and I find that my point of view is underrepresented in the YouTuberverse. And I'd like to see that change for all of us, to be honest. Anyway, back on topic. Back to the point. And the point is what? You may ask. You may all be asking right now. Nicknames. Oh, yeah. Got the Dick Nixon. We got the George the First. William Jefferson Clinton, that's of course Bill. Which is amenable to $3 bill, to bill of goods, whatever. Which, this is the thing. If you want to be a presidential candidate, for you parents out there, again, you've got your gender reveal. It used to be that when your gender reveal party came around, you could pretty much say that you can be president of the United States. So I'm going to name you Richard. That way, it's guaranteed. That identity all works. I'm sorry, guys. I have this, stuff. So it ain't hanging together. I'm trying to keep my audio going up here and the microphone going down here. It's kind of not working out for me. But anyway, so yeah, nicknames again. Bill of Goods. That's like next was George again. We've already covered George. There's been, how many Georges have there been? There was George Washington. There was George Bush. And George Bush II, and then William, and then William, George Bush II, and then Barack. Now there's that's kind of weird. Because I don't know if in the Arabic world there is a like kind of a nickname for that name, which is a common name in the Islamic world, because it is from the Arabic. Arabic? No. Arabarak? No. Arab. Oh yeah, the Arab guy. Yeah, that Arab guy. Yeah, you're right. His friends did call him Barry when he was a kid, and so yeah, there is a possibility there. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out whether I'm fucking up here. Yeah. I want to get my computer rather than my iPhone to recognize my earpod thing. Because it's all complicated, and I was not prepared, and I'm a terrible streamer, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing anyway. But yeah, but it is tough. It'd be even tougher if his name was delivered rather than in the Arabic, in the English meaning of the word, which is blessed. BRK in Arabic conveys the meaning of a blessing, a blessed person, a blessed something or other, and baraka is a blessing. It means a blessing. Obama, which if I'm sure that if people actually knew that on in certain circles, they'd go out of their fucking minds. But you know what they went out of their fucking minds about was his middle name, and we'll get to that later. A little bit, anyway. And then Donald John Trump. So Don, he don't like Don. Don Sr., that is. Don. May I call you Don? I think it is fortuitous that his middle name is John, because Don Juan, hey, that's the way. The Don likes the one in his whole Studio 54 presentation. That fucking guy. I can't believe he's still with us, to be honest. Not in the temporal sense, but there are a lot of people hooked into that fella's personality. Anyway, Don Juan is still around. And now we have Joseph. Call him Joe. He's a regular Joe guy. Robinette Biden. Now, of all these people, I don't know. None of them went by their middle name. But to get back to the topic of the stream, it's a little bit of a history lesson. Harry, given name. He was baptized Harry. Who does that? No wonder he went by his middle name, Bob Haldeman. Bob Haldeman was Nixon's chief of staff. Bob Haldeman was, I wouldn't exactly call him a yes man. He was a fixer. He was a trusted fixer. He did all sorts of things for. I'm sorry, I'm slipping back into boomer terminology. Tricky Dick. I mean, shit, that's not even boomer terminology. They were calling him Dicky Trick. Yeah, well, he might have had a few Dicky tricks. Not as many, maybe, as Tramp. I said Tramp. Jesus Christ. Sorry, guys, that was Freudian slip. He was the equivalent of Mark Meadows. Under Don John. And Don John, Don John wanted this bridge, I think, insofar as Don John has any fucking idea as to what he's doing in politics. I think Trump's unique talent is conning people. And he knows the tone he needs to have at any given point in time. And he's very good at sensing what that tone is all about. And what he needed as his chief of staff was a guy like Mark Meadows, a guy who was a congressman, right wing, could appeal to the reasonable right, but who was willing to play ball simply for power. Yeah, Jason, it's otherwise known as a bullshitter. It's exactly right. But simply, he needed that person to get to make the connections and to maintain them. Mark Meadows, by the way, does not have, as far as I could tell from the latest reindicted stuff, doesn't have a first name that isn't Mark. And of course, Mark, how are you going to give a nickname to a Mark? A single syllable name is tough. That's why George is tough. I mean, you kind of have to work hard at it to think around with that. But H.R. Haldeman, anyway, that Bob Haldeman was Nixon's chief of staff. And Bob Haldeman was through and true for Dick someone so committed to screwing the other guy, basically. And attached to a man committed to screwing the other guy. That he went down, and what did Richard Nixon do? obfuscated. I personally think that Mark Meadows didn't want to be a Bob Haldeman, didn't want to be that guy. It's like at least wanted to get a pass to a certain degree with the feds. And I do think that he probably has got a deal to a certain degree with the feds. And what happened last night that I think is really kind of funny is that he's got that deal with the feds, but he ain't got that deal with Georgia. I think that, you know, the way this stuff is going to play out in the judicial system is going to be extremely interesting to watch. This is way more complicated than what happened in 1974 with all of that stuff. I remember sitting in a very, very hot fifth floor factory in Boston, listening to the Watergate hearings, listening to a young group of congressmen, my own congressman from I think Bill Cohen, who later served as Barack Obama's Secretary of Defense, a Republican. He was an outspoken opponent of Nixon because of Nixon's egregious violation of what? Breaking in to directing a break-in to the Democratic National Committee's headquarters and stealing stuff. Yeah, you're right, Jason. There is a direct line from Cohn and McCarthy and the rabid right wing to Trump. And the tragedy of Trump, if there is a tragedy, if I'm going to give the guy any charity whatsoever, that's the tragedy. It's not so much of a tragedy, though, is it? Because Trump is basically a guy who will roll with whatever side is going to redound to his benefit. Anyway, I remember I remember a time when there were, in fact, people in a party that was, let's face it, fundamentally devoted, you know, at least a very large element of the Republican Party throughout the 1950s, really. It goes that a large portion of the Republican Party who used Dwight D. Eisenhower as their standard bearer really hated the fact that Dwight D. Eisenhower wasn't with them, and the them is the America First movement of the 1930s to keep us out of World War II. I mean, Eisenhower didn't say let's get rid of Social Security, but that strain in the Republican Party was still there. They so resented the fact that Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who no one ever called Frank, won 4 terms as president. And the headstands that Roosevelt had to turn to keep that coalition together was pretty tough. A lot of people would say that World War II saved his ass, but I don't think it did, really. I think that what Roosevelt brought to rural America was what kept him winning the votes, like power. Remember, in the Great Depression and before the Great Depression, a huge swath of rural America did not have electric power because no one had ever committed to providing the advances in technology to everyone, because companies did not find it profitable to provide electricity to rural communities in West Virginia, in Kentucky, and Tennessee. And who made them? I mean, the same counties that are solid Republican right now are the beneficiaries of what they themselves call today socialism. The Tennessee Valley Authority was a Roosevelt program. The rural electrification thing was a big deal. The modern equivalent of that is broadband everywhere. It's a big deal. I think the left is really terrible contemporaneously at moving, at getting people who are the beneficiaries of the programs that are there. And maybe it's because people don't realize that it's the maybe it's because people don't realize that this stuff is thanks for letting me know, Liz. I'm gonna just do a quick thing here. Maybe it's gonna let me know if it's better. Maybe it's because people don't, either the left is terrible at messaging, or the progressive side of things is terrible at messaging, which is probably true. Because generally speaking, I think we tend to focus on lifting people up as opposed to tearing people down. Over the course of my life, that seems to me to be a very common threat that rightist ideology is about tearing people down rather than lifting people up. Exclusion as opposed to inclusion. And it's not about a question of rules. It's like, well, if you qualify here, then blah 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 blah. It's a matter of where do you get qualifications? How do you establish qualifications? Where do you draw the line? What's the baseline below which a person is considered unworthy of being lifted up? It's a really thing. I'm sorry. This is a heavy stream. I like to be a little bit more lighthearted. But anyway, old H.R. Haldeman. I will get back to that thing. Jesus Christ, I went on a tangent. Yeah, well, what you had with Bob Haldeman was a functionary. And what you have with Mark Meadows is a functionary. Whoa, foot over top. And they're often very, very clever. And they think they'll skate. But they're not going to skate. They're not. I mean, Meadows may cooperate, but he's not ultimately going to skate. But I do think that for people to begin to trust again at all in the way things work, in the way a democratic system should work. So we're going to need to tear down these things, because we're going to need to tear down the notion that some people can't meet the bar of being people. We're going to need to get rid of that idea entirely. We're going to need to get rid of the idea that there's a qualification in some way, shape, or form to being considered to be human. Sorry, I'm adjusting myself in my on the deck here. And it hasn't changed. Folks, it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed for years and decades and all my goddamn life. When I was a child, there was prayer in schools that my Jewish teachers had to read from the New Testament. When I was a child in public schools in most of the country, that was a fact. When I was a child and into my 20s, in most school systems in the country, whether de jure or de facto, there was segregation in every region of the country. There were violent riots and, well, now I wouldn't say riots, I will say violent confrontations in my hometown of Boston in my 20s when I was going to college and living between a black area, predominantly black area, and a predominantly white area. Violent confrontations around the idea of desegregating that city's schools. Google Paul Garrity. Google Boston segregation crisis. There is a very famous photo of a man with an American flag on the plaza at Boston City Hall charging a black person. In 1975. I had really hoped that by the time I was 70, I wouldn't be having to talk about this crap. God knows. Those issues are actually stronger and still extant than people have with trans people or gay people or anything else. Those issues are still fucking extant. And they still need dealing with, and we are still dealing with the garbage I grew up with in the 1950s. And in the case of trans people and gay people, they want to start there to the extent that laws have been changed to recognize the injustice of treating people of a different race differently. Those laws were repealed through not inconsequential, not some divine spirit coming down and making a difference, but through tears and struggle. And there were laws, obviously, against gay marriage, against sodomy, against a whole bunch of stuff. Those laws were repealed as well through the same processes, albeit not so visible. And today, and obviously against women. When I was a child, when I was young, when I was a teenager, the rules about abortion were exactly the same way things are now. Because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And so, if you lived in Massachusetts and you were, and you were a high schooler and you got pregnant, what did you do? You took a vacation to New York. You just went off to New York, and that's what everybody said. Where's Karen today? Where's Cheryl? She's in New York. When I was a child, when I was a teenager, actually, when I was a very young child, there was no such thing as hormonal birth control for women. It became available in the early 1960s. Contraception didn't, and it was illegal to use it. In many states until Griswold v. Connecticut, which I believe was 1968. It was illegal. It was legal after Griswold only for married couples. And it wasn't until 1972 that it was legal for everyone in certain states across the country. I graduated from high school in 1971. Do you understand how hard people fought to achieve those rights? How hard we fought for progress. And here we are watching it all go away because of the likes of Matt fucking Walsh, and you blame me. Don't. Look around. Look around. Some of us fought very, very hard. Some of us older than even me, who are now dead. Some of us fought very, very hard for a lot of these things. Some of us fought the H.R. Harry Robert Haldeman. Some of us fought those people. You all need to start fighting the Mark Meadowses. You all need to start fighting you all need to start fighting the people among you who are fighting you. Find out who they are. Get rid of them. I look at Marjorie Taylor Greene and I see a child. I look at Lauren Boebert. I see a child, I'm not voting for him. You all are. Yeah, some of my contemporaries are as well. And that's the mistake my generation made. We thought we'd won. We thought we had won. As naive younger folk, we thought we'd finally achieved this stuff. We'd done the marching, we'd done the stuff, we'd done all this stuff. And the young Americans for freedom, well, they were just footnotes in the annals of history. But you know what? Those young Americans for freedom, those Goldwater Republicans, they had a plan. And they were dedicated to that plan. They are continue to be dedicated to that plan, even if they're 80 years old now. I mean, 1964 to now, it's like they're older than me. I was a very, very young kid. I was 11 in 1964. But still. Anywho, I don't know. I count on you all. I count on, I'm not long for this world. You all are. You're in it for the long haul. I am too. But I have seen so much fight and been through several fights. I just wish that people would recognize that it's not all slogans. It's what people are. It's where people are at. When you get, you can shit on Jordan Peterson, who's an asshole. Shit on the assholes. Every day of the week. Old or young. Black or white. Bigotry has no color either. Bigotry's not, bigotry is personal. But bigotry is not a point of view. Bigotry is a fundamental core belief that people have somehow come to. And usually it's through education. Sometimes it's Christian education. Sometimes it's just where you wind up. You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed in your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught to be afraid of people whose eyes are oddly made and people whose skin is a different shade. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be taught before it's too late, before you are 6 or 7 or 8, to hate all the people your relatives hate. You've got to be carefully taught. You've got to be carefully taught. Careful we don't teach that anymore. Careful. And so while I'm grateful that Georgia, at least, ain't gonna let Mark Meadows off the hook. I'm disappointed that, unlike in the Nixon era, and this is where I am waving a bit of a flag, there are no people no visible people aside from a very few in a major in the largest opposition party in the United States who are willing to walk up to who are willing to confront the notion that a purely fascist model of strongman politics is a recipe for political success. I mean, the fact that Donald J. Trump is still the leading contender for the nomination of the opposition party of the second largest party in the United States of America is terrifying to me. I mean, fucking Barry Goldwater marched into the White House and told Nixon, listen, dude, you don't have the votes in the Senate to avoid actual removal from office. I mean, Howard Baker, Barry Goldwater, and the guy from the senator from Connecticut, I forget, Howard Schultz, walked into Nixon's office and said, listen, man, you're done. You're done. By this time, John Marshall, the Attorney General of the United States, are you wondering why Bill Barr jumped off the Trump train? Because he knew what happened to John fucking. That's what happened. That's just, yeah, history don't repeat, it rhymes. But it's pretty remarkable how far we've moved towards authoritarianism, how far people have been willing to go. It was actually literally amazing to me. In my last long form stream, when really out of the goddamn blue, Doug came in here and started talking, and it took ages and ages and ages about talking about trans issues which are really quite irrelevant to anybody's fucking life, except for the lives of trans people themselves, in a political sense, or trans children, or their families, or any of this other stuff. But seems to be the absolute crux of how the right wing wants to talk about shit, and then puts up crap on the goddamn channel saying, I am having too much fun with this. Blew me away that at the end of that stream, the guy who claims to be a libertarian basically makes the claim that the way you determine morality is by majority rule. The guy is agreeing with Saitan Budenkate at that point. You atheists have no grounding in morality. It's just garbage. It's not good. I mean, we can be jovial and cordial with each other to a certain degree, but Jesus fucking Christ. At a certain point, how is it possible to say that what is legal is moral? Does that make any fucking sense? Jesus, I try to keep it light, but I was in a bit of a heavy mood, and I wanted to get on stream and talk about this bullshit and ramble on, and I'm gonna say, anybody who wants to come in can come on in after my ramble on. And I'm gonna just find this thing and stick this thing and copy it, and I'm gonna stick this thing in this thing. Then I'm gonna have to get, Yep, there we go. That's there. Now I'm gonna have to pin the fucking thing, because let's see. Yeah, basically tongue me down off the ledge, because I'm just mute this before I confuse myself anymore. Oh yeah, look at that. Stephanie Helms made a comment. I like Stephanie Helms' comment so much, I'm going to pin the thing. Woohoo! There we go. Top chat. I don't even know. What is the live chat? Yeah, alright. There's that. So everybody's welcome to come in and talk. Well, if nobody jumps in, then that's cool too. I'm pretty tired, and I'm happy enough to just jump off. And my apologies for my doing Broadway stuff every now and again, but I am particularly proud of Reindicted. I thought it was really good. I came up with that like I was sitting in the Lines chat last night in the usual marathon stream, moderating that when Jimmy came on and said, Yeah. Georgia's just indicted Trump. It's like re-indicted, and it feels so good. Anyhow, yeah, that's fun stuff. Now, are you? Am I a fan of Tom Lehrer? Of course, I'm a fan of Tom Lehrer. Tom Lehrer is great. National Brotherhood Week. Great song. Killing. Well, it's like Poisoning Pigeons in the Park. Other great song. And by the way, Tom Lehrer is a huge hero of mine on account of the fact the man is still alive. He was doing what is essentially what Randy Rainbow is doing today. He was doing that shit in the early 60s. And he has just made his entire oeuvre, his entire body of work public. He committed it to the public domain, and his stuff is great. It's the same crap. This is what I'm saying. It's just all the same crap. It's not all exactly the same crap, but a whole lot of it is. Harvard educated man, exactly right, Liz Allen. Absolutely. Of course. Damn. Facebook guy. Harvard educated man. It's not just parody songs. Purple. I love my country as it dies in war and fear behind my eyes. I walk the streets where disrespect has been. The sin of politics. The politics of sin. The heartlessness that haunts my soul on Christmas. Black Panther brothers bound in jail. Chicago 7 and the Justice Scale. Those weren't parody. They were they're as relevant today as ever. Homeless Indians of Manhattan Isle. All God's love has gone to trial. And all God's love is out of style on Christmas. That was parody, and it's not any different, and it makes me really sad. I'll be honest, it makes me so sad. Neil Young, I'm a vampire baby, sucking blood from the earth. I'm a vampire baby, sucking blood from the earth. I'm a vampire baby. Sell you 20 barrels worth. What's changed since 1972? We tried. We did. Tried. Tried hard. There's a huge, huge clamp on humanity. I think that now there may be a chance. In those days, it was independent papers and the press and all of this and that mimeograph. Literally, the civil rights movement was built on mimeograph machines, mostly in church basements. I hear you, Purple. I usually can't speak. Yeah, I prefer not to. I get. Always have the spoons to talk about sports and stuff. I always have the spoons to talk about that. I don't always have the spoons to talk about the deep roots of politics. I don't. But I felt like I probably should sort of kick in and because I just have. I don't know where it's going. Does anybody know where it's going? Can somebody tell me where it's going? With I don't see how. I honestly don't see how this ends without a cataclysm in American politics. I mean, by cataclysm, I mean the kind of cataclysm that caused the end of the Whig Party. I don't see how we don't have why we don't have either a triumph of the authoritarians, which will only happen if people who don't care for fascism stay together, even if the alternative sucks. And I know it sounds shitty. All you need to win in this in the system that we have, all you need to win is, as a practical matter, all you need to win is enough of the states. If, in real terms, if the 2020 plot had gone to fruition if, and I tried to explain this to, what's his fucking nuts? What's that guy? Skylar Fiction. I tried to explain this and he got all pissed off. And it's like, well, okay, you can disagree, but if the plot had gone through to the point where Pence had agreed that, okay, I'm going to say that we have these delegations and there's a dispute, so let's throw it to the House of Representatives. The way the Constitution works, if you throw it to the House of Representatives, if somehow or another it winds up in the House of Representatives, the vote is by state delegation. And if the vote is by state delegation, even though the Democrats have a majority in the House of Representatives, they do not have a majority in 2020 of state delegations. Therefore, we get Don John. All of this shit was is completely illegal, and illegal not only in terms of the law as interpreted, but certainly in terms of the just the tradition. But we've never had a tradition where a losing candidate refuses to acknowledge the loss and pass on power. And all it takes in any kind of human society is somebody to disagree. No, okay. You say that's wrong, here's a gun. Boom! You dead. It's the way it works. And that's the if we don't get back to a place where even though violence may be the last refuge of the incompetent, as Salvador Arden said, and Isaac Asimov's saying, violence is extremely effective at eliminating the competent. So, yeah. So, anyway, I don't know if any of this is coherent, if anybody cares. Anybody wants to come in and shoot me down or chat me up or get me off my pleasant deck into other realms, that'd be great. Otherwise, Gee. What's going on in the on the interwebs? I don't see anything going on the YouTubes anyway. There must be something going on in the interwebs that's really kind of cool. At least I didn't go into Exhuming McCarthy, which we could do as well, but. And in McCarthy's case, Joe, that's not Eugene, but Joe McCarthy. Again, there was enough of a pushback, and I'm just not seeing it. I wish if there was a pushback, and even my conservative friends that I do know, it's like, people will say, well, what about Joe Biden? How is it even fucking comparable? How about the Biden family? How's it even comparable? Then it just fucking shows how effective the counter narrative is. I mean, last I saw, there wasn't a situation that is remotely comparable to a sitting president refusing to transfer power. I mean, believe me, if the if the insurrectionists of the 6th of January had remotely succeeded, as one of Trump's advisors said, any objections? That's what the Insurrection Act is for. And at that point, we have to rely on the military. If you invoke the Insurrection Act, which says, okay, go out and put down the riots, which is the ultimate gaslighting. Well, it's not you who are rebelling. It's not us who are rebelling. It's you guys. So the insurrectionists mount an insurrection. The guy who inspired the insurrection says, U.S. military, go out and put down the insurrectionists who were opposing the people who did the insurrection. I mean, it's like, how is that not gaslighting? Whoa. What the fuck? And I'm sitting there talking to this guy I've never talked to in my entire fucking life. Skyro Fiction, I'm talking to this motherfucker, and he's going, well, that would never have happened, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, we came this close. This close. Stand back, stand by. Okay. How long do you think it would have been? What? I mean, I think maybe we're lucky that Trump is at least a little bit simple-minded and got dissuaded, and or that there were enough people that were actually willing to cold cock him and say, "Go fuck yourself," at that moment in time. And if one of those people was Mark Meadows, then hey, good on you, mate. But you let it get this far. And how many people won't be there in that moment? I think actually, I think Ron DeSantis is a good deal more effective than Donald Trump. Look at what he's done in Florida. He's basically taken over the state. I don't know why he's running for president. He should concentrate on Florida and make it his fiefdom and secede. He's a clown, but he can be Florida's clown. And by saying that, I'm not saying that we, as the people of the United States, should abandon Florida to the likes of Ron DeSantis. But in some manner or fashion, we actually have. As we have abandoned Texas. Let me ask it. Let me posit a hypothetical here. Suppose we go back to 1956. I think it was 56. It might have been 54. I can't remember. I think it's 56. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was 56. It was post Brown v. Board, which I believe was decided in 1954. Let's suppose that Dwight David Eisenhower, Republican President of the United States, decided to let the defiance of Governor Faubus stand. In opposition to the Brown versus Board of Education decision of the United States Supreme Court that mandated the integration of the Little Rock school system. Let's just suppose sorry, I'm an addict, Mark. And I shouldn't be, but I'm trying to taper off. They are very expensive here, Rizwa, and I'm trying to taper off for that reason too. I'm actually doing quite well. I'm down to about 4 a day. Addiction is terrible. Anyway, let's just suppose Dwight David Eisenhower sat back. Or sat on the sidelines in some way that let people thought that it was inconsequential that this governor, this state, could just sit there and ignore that decision. What do you suppose would have happened? I can't imagine. But that's not what happened. That's not what happened. A Republican president of the United States who had commanded troops in battles, black and white, in a segregated army, knew that decision was correct. And he nationalized the National Guard. And made sure that that decision was enforced. Could have gone otherwise. What do you suppose would have happened? Perhaps the same sort of thing that happened in, I believe it was 1830, I think, when the Supreme Court ruled that the treaties with the Cherokee were enforceable and that they had rights to their national territory. They were a recognized nation. I think it was the Cherokee. And if there are any Native Americans, please correct my long away education in history. Although I did get a degree in it. Maybe it would have been equivalent to Andy Jackson basically saying George Marshall has made his ruling, now let him enforce it, and he didn't. And what did he do? He marched the fucking Cherokees out of the eastern states to Oklahoma in what is now known as the Trail of Tears. What do you suppose? Pretty equivalent stuff. And in my conversation with, yes, Trail of Tears, exactly right. In my conversation with Pine Creek, that's exactly where we're going here. His argument, Doug's argument at the end of my last conversation with the guy was basically, well, it's whatever human beings decide amongst themselves about the status of other human beings. And that is the way it works. And, tough luck if you're on the losing end. It's like, well, tough luck if you're on the losing end, I guess. But is that any way to run a railroad, people? Is it? I mean, to a certain extent, Doug is correct. It's exactly right. And I just expressed that. It's like, well, if somebody basically says, well, fuck you, I'm not going to pay any attention to establish norms, and I'm going to change the norms. This is the problem I have with current discourse. And I forget who the fuck it was that said, well, you all think that there's this reality, but we're going to change the reality and we're going to shift the whole thing. This is what, people talk about the Overton window, and that's exactly it. But I don't think all of us realize how important it is for each of us to do that in our own little way. I mean, I know I have shifted in my own life, the Overton window, regarding the way people regard trans people simply by being me. And I think it's tremendously funny. It's like not because there's only one way to do this. I think it's tremendously funny that despite all of that, it's both tremendously funny and tremendously depressing that despite all of that, you get fuckwads like Matt Walsh just being assholes and shifting it all the way back, even though the poof. What do you mean, Logan? You think Doug hasn't been clipped for what? I don't know. I don't really give a fuck about that guy. I mean, Doug has obviously made his motives known. Let's put it that way. I mean, his stream about with Dillahunty was I'm just having too much fun. That's what he titled it. I'm just having too much fun with this. And I think it's pathetic, to be honest, that people have fun with other people's lives when the consequences are that important. It's like, yeah, you've got your you do you. I mean, I can't, what can I look at? You go out on YouTube, you come out and say shit like this. I mean, somebody's going to clip something I've said tonight, I'm sure, and paint it whatever, however they want. But that's up to them. Anyway, I guess that's about it for me tonight. I've been here rambling on for an hour and a half, and I can let y'all go. I'm good. Just was a wee bit of a history lesson and a ramble through contemporary thoughts, and I hope that you all, those of you who've stuck around through this whole thing, have something to say. Please let me know in comments and like, subscribe, share if you like this. I know this is a total ramble, but tell folks I keep trying to do better on this stuff, and I think it's, I don't know. Get me out there. You think I'm demented, Mark? I'm only partially demented. Had a shitty day on the race course this evening, but that's okay. I'm good. Torment the tormentors. Stand for people and love them. Be kind. Try that. Best way to go. Just be kind. Good night, everybody. Bye.